Okay, I believe that we are ready, Rabotai. Beautiful. Okay, good morning, Kahal Kadosh. Good morning. Good morning, Kahal Kadosh. Today, Wednesday, the 12th day of Iyar, 27th day of the Omer, May 3rd, 2022, 23 rather. Special breakfast and class, graciously sponsored by Mr. and Mrs. Eli Levy, La'ilui Nishmat, his beloved father, Yom Tov ben Altun Halevi, that today, the 12th of Iyar, is the day of his Askara. Additionally, today's class, graciously dedicated anonymously Le'ilui Nishmat, Mr. Charles Ashkenazi, Shaul ben Miriam alav shalom. Iratzon that to the words of Torah, both Neshamot have an aliyah in Gan Eden. Amen. As we continue reviewing the magnificent daily lessons of the Omer, we come across the number 27th of the Omer, which that's a number, thank you very much, that we counted last night, in which we have, interesting enough, two great tzaddikim meeting each other by the hosting and the special guest of honor. As we know, this week, the host of the entire week is Moshe Rabbeinu, through the Sephirah known as Nesach. Nesach means eternity, Nesach means victory, but we also welcome a special guest by the name of Yosef HaSaddik. Hence the Sephirah of today, it's called Yesod Sheba Nesach, the foundation within the eternity. And although these two Saddikim, they lived in two different times, but I think that is imperative. Thank you so much. Enough. I don't eat so much in the morning, but thank you. Thank you. Nevertheless, you can have the grapefruit. I can have grapefruit. You can have it. Let me bless the grapefruit. May be a good source of health and happiness for you.
When you take medication, you can't take grapefruit.
More or less. Some of them, they don't settle good with the grapefruit, but everything is good. Baruch Hashem. Thank you for serving me the plate. But let's discuss a moment about Yosef. Everyone knows Bechabod, of course. Baruch Haba. Rachel bat Rivka. Today also, right? Hazaku Baruch. We added also today to the class the dedication of Mr. Clemi Elias' grandmother, Rachel bat Rivka, alayha shalom. So we know that Yosef HaSaddik, in the Kabbalistic aspect of the human body, corresponds to the area of the body that is between the legs of a person. In the men's department, this refers to the topic of the Berit Milah, the circumcision, and the protection of the Milah throughout our life. And also in the ladies' department, it has to do with the topic of family purity, Taharat HaMishpacha, which is one of the most fundamental aspects of a Jewish life. Not only for the bride to go to the mikveh the night or a few days before the wedding, but actually family purity should be an instrumental part of every Jewish couple. That has a direct influence on the marriage, on the relationship, on Hashem's blessings, on the children, and many other matters. And that is the reason why that this fundamental commandment is not called Taharat Isha, the purification of the wife, even though she's the one who makes all the processes and the cleansing and the internal checking and goes to the mikveh, yet we call this commandment Taharat HaMishpacha, the holiness or the purity of the entire family. So in a sense, in essence, the essence of Yosef HaSaddik connects to this aspect of life. On the other hand, we remember the life of Yosef in Egypt. It wasn't an easy life. It was a very challenging life. It was a very difficult life. It was a life that literally temptation was knocking on his door 3 times a day. Literally every day for an entire year. Zuleika, the wife of Potiphar, attempted to seduce Yosef, and we all know the end of that story. that Yosef, as Sadiq, mustered up a lot of physical and spiritual strength to be able to escape from this temptation, which obviously only someone of the magnitude of Yosef was able to overcome this concept. Hence the name that we give to Yosef. We call him Yosef HaSadiq. Even though in our life, in our history of the Jewish people, we have had many Sadiqim at all levels, but not everyone was called the name Sadiq openly, like Mordechai Sadiq, Shimon Sadiq, Binyamin Sadiq, and Yosef Sadiq. And the fact that we add such a title, honorary title, to the name, it means that something above the norm happened. The same thing with Mordechai. Why Mordechai was Mordechai HaSadiq? Because Mordechai had the strength to go against the nation, to go against Haman, Ahashverosh, and every single citizen that will bow down to Haman. And the Pasuk says clearly, Mordechai lo yichra velo ishtahave. Mordechai does not bow down, Mordechai does not prostrate to Haman. And therefore, that moment of truth that they demonstrated the true essence of their life made them become Sadiqim. The Torah, or the Pasuk of Tehillim that we're going to read tomorrow in the song of the day, the same song of Rosh Hashanah, there is a Pasuk that says, Idut bi Yosef Samo, Beseto al Eres Misraim. We were not in Egypt. You were in Egypt, right? You were in Egypt. You also. My father also, alav shalom. But none of us was in Egypt when Yosef HaSadiq lived. There was no Jew when Yosef HaSadiq lived in Egypt, with the exception of him. And eventually, his future wife. Before slavery, I'm talking about. In the challenging years of the life of Yosef, he had nothing. It was him and God. Eventually, Osnat, his wife. But at the end of the day, can you imagine surviving as a teenage Jew in Egypt, in an environment that immorality and promiscuity was the name of the game in Egypt? No decency, no respect to each other. Whatever you see today, Egypt was not different back then. He was 17 years old. He was there from 17 till the age of 39. Those are your most, as I said yesterday to the teens visiting us, those are the formative years of a person. And God says, I'm not worried that there are no witnesses to Yosef. I am a witness, God says. And that's why, I may have said this in the early days of the Omer, this is the way that the Pasuk writes in the book of Tehillim, Edut, a testimony, Vi Yosef Samo. God says, I'm the witness that Yosef remained holy and pure. And what did God do to the name of Yosef? Added one letter, the letter He. We never see the name Yosef written with a He. If you look to all my books, what are you going to see? Yosef. You're not going to see Yehosef. Okay? Every time I write, I put Yosef. One exception, God says, I'm the eyewitness that Yosef did not sin in Egypt. That holiness that Yosef HaSadiq protected himself of not falling spiritually to the close of temptation activated a miracle that all of the Jewish people benefited from. There was one miracle that took place only in honor of the Yosef HaSadiq. Let me ask you a question while I take a sip of my coffee that has been with me for a while already. Think for 10 seconds. Don't jump. Think what miracle happened in the merit of Yosef HaSadiq. Whatever it takes me to drink a sip of coffee, that's the time that you have. You can call a friend, 50-50, ask the audience, whatever you want to do, whatever options you have in the game. What happened to the music? Okay, thank you. Hazaku Baruch. Doctor, Juice by Julie, right? Good. You see, that's a free commercial. Unbelievable. I wish you great aslaha. Doctor of health, of organic juice, healthy matters, detoxing. Matchaf. Matchaf, don't worry. Yes. Hazau Baruch. What about you? Hazaku Baruch. Beautiful answer. David HaMelech says in the book of Tehillim, in the Hallel, Hayam Ra'a Bayanos. The ocean saw and retrieved. Move back. What did he see? So if you look in the Mefarshim that it says, even the Zohar Kadosh, it says, what did he see? He saw the coffin of Yosef HaSadik. Ra'a Arono Shel Yosef. He saw the coffin. Why? Because you have to understand one thing. When it came to the moment of the splitting of the Red Sea by Moshe Rabbeinu, the sea refused to split. The sea refused to split. He says, why should I split? To drown the Egyptians after the Jewish people survive? They both wrong. They both did idolatry. They both didn't have any mitzvah. Don't forget, when we were in Egypt, the first commandment given to us, what was the commandment? Korban Pesach and Berit Milah. So we didn't have the Torah yet that I say, you know what? I did sins, but I also did a lot of mitzvot. So maybe I have a good brownie points. When we were in Egypt, we left Egypt at the ultimate moment possible to leave. Because we would have stayed in Egypt one more day, we would have reached the point of no return spiritually. Hence the Omer is 49. Because once you reach the number 50 in wisdom, in impurity, etc., you reach a whole different level that coming back, it's nearly impossible. And that's why when we do the Omer, we count every day. Because every day we are climbing one step away from the abyss of impurity. So when we reach number 49, the last night of the Omer, and night 50 is Shavuot, that means that we arrive to the ground zero. We arrive to the lobby, so to speak, of Teshuvah. Not like we climb 50 levels of Teshuvah. Yeah, we climb from the basement 49 levels. One level, one level, one level. Oh, now I arrive to the lobby. Now I'm able to concentrate of how do I climb up the ladder of holiness and godliness. So the water said to Moshe, why should I split? So at the end, we know the happy ending of the story. Moshe Rabbeinu was in charge of the remains of Yosef HaSadik, and the Pasuk writes, Hayam Ra'a Bayanos. The ocean saw and retrieved. In the Torah, when we see the Pasuk that Potiphar's wife, Zuleika, makes the final move against Yosef, that puts him against the wall, etc., what the Pasuk says, Bayanos Bayese Ahutza, Yosef HaSadik retrieved Bayanos. So we say, Yosef HaSadik escape, the waters escape backwards, and in the Zechut of Yosef, the miracle of the Keriat Yam Suf took place. Without that Zechut, I don't know what could have been the next step in Jewish history. Same thing with Mordechai HaSadik. If Mordechai, in the moment of truth, does not take that bold move of saying, I'm not bowing down to a man, who knows if the story of Purim would have had such a happy ending story. Let's continue. So with that being said, we learn now from this opening statement that these two Sefirot are literally like a twin brother and sister. Because without a good foundation, you cannot have continuity. It's like you want to have a beautiful building and you worry about the marble in the lobby. That's beautiful. But if you don't have good foundation in the building, you can say Kaddish on everything else. And the foundation are aspects in life that are not seen. When we build the foundation now for the seawall. Do you see it? It's covered. But without that, the city doesn't allow me to make a demolition and to put a nail on the wall. Yani I need to spend $300,000-$400,000 of something that goes underneath the water 25 feet more or less, or 30 feet even more, and covered and approved and being able to withstand certain amount of weight and measure and a lot of technical things not relevant for today's class, but that's called the foundation of a building. It's like the Champlain Towers, the unfortunate tragedy that happened, Haz v'Shalom, 2 years, almost a year or 2 years ago, right? Do you know the change that tragedy brought to South Florida? You have no idea. If you don't live here, you have no idea the changes that it brought, which we still don't know what really happened. There are all kinds of things being said, stories, statements. One of the things is blaming the foundation. The foundation was at fault from the beginning. I'm not an expert. Who am I to comment? But they found deficiencies. They found leakage. They found rusting. They found decay. They found a lot of matters that, who knows, maybe the protocols of laws of building was a certain standard 40 years ago. I remember when Hurricane Andrew came, 1992. I lived here, some of you probably were here, and that changed a segment of the building code. And every few years, as hurricanes become more frequent visitors and strong winds and disasters, etc., so the laws, the building code is improved and updated, etc. So since this unfortunate tragedy happened in Surfside, so guess what? Now every condominium gets ready for the 40-year certification. They need to have the condo association now must have reserves, and they have approvals, and they need to have every 10 years recertification. There were 2 cases or 3 cases not far from here that people were literally evicted from their buildings because they were deemed not safe. Right, not far away from me in North Miami Beach, North Bay Village, another condo got a bill to restore for the recertification $46 million. The building is worth much less. So now look at the situation that this is bringing. Okay, we don't understand. We don't understand, and I'm not trying to deviate from the topic. But what is this whole rules and regulations are being established? For one reason and one reason only, preserving human life. Now let's take this statement and transfer it to a spiritual aspect of life. Because we are Yehudim, Baruch Hashem, and we say, Asher b'charbanu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us the Torah. We are called the people of the book. We are called the firstborn child of God. We are called the chosen nation. Whatever name you want to give to the Jewish people. Everyone understands that being a Yehudi, being a Jew, is not limited to feeling a Jewish pride or to feel a good Jew in the heart. The Judaism brings 2 aspects of life. The external aspect of life, the way we act, the way we behave, the way we conduct ourselves, and then we have simultaneously, which is not less important, is the spiritual way of life. And only once we combine the physical and the spiritual way of life, so then we are somehow investing not only in our life as a Jew, but we are investing in guaranteeing the future of the Jewish people. Because if God forbid, if every family, if every person does not invest spiritually for themselves and for the future generation, what's going to be in the future generation? 1 generation can survive. 2 generations maybe. 3 generations most likely not. Because as the generations are going by, and they are, by the way, I don't want to sound dramatic, but there are statistics and charts with numbers, with design describing that families that have a certain level of spiritual life built into the regular life, following the tradition, following the holidays, praying, kashrut, Shabbat, etc., they have, so to speak, a vested aspect of spiritual life invested for the future. But if God forbid the person doesn't have and doesn't transfer over to the next generation, and the next generation already had little from the previous generation, and they don't transfer more to the next generation, what do you expect to have? Nothing. So therefore it says, the yesod, the foundation of holiness in our life. I'm not referring specifically now to only family purity. I'm talking about overall, that God becomes an integral part of our life and Torah becomes an integral part of our life. Because there are many goyim that believe in God and they read the Proverbs and Ecclesiastes and the Bible, etc. Of course, I understand that. So what I'm saying, our connection with God cannot be limited in our connection with God in my brain and in my heart. The connection with the Kadosh Baruch Hu, says the Sefirah of today, needs also to be put into a practical matter of life. Because at the end of the day, how spiritual our life can be, but I cannot divorce myself from the aspect of material life. But I cannot divorce myself from the spiritual life. So what's my goal? The Sefirah of today says, a combination of both. The physical with the spiritual. Once I have my boundaries, and I have my guidelines, and I have my strong foundation of Judaism, so then I'm able to qualify for eternity. What does it mean, eternity? Eternity means that I remain alive and everyone remains alive through their descendants. And that's something that nobody can do this for you. We can guide you, we can assist you, we can teach, you can listen, but at the end of the day, a person is the one that is on the driver's seat of the life and their family. And it says, every aspect of life requires reinforcement. We agree on that. Every aspect of life. But there are certain mitzvot, says the Sefirah of today, that we need to remember that there are certain matters which they are called Yesod Hadat, the foundation of Judaism. By the way, this was the name of the kitab that I went to in Argentina. And thousands of our friends and students, especially if they are from Argentina, they're familiar with this. That was the name of the Talmud Torah and the yeshiva established by Hacham Shhebar, alav shalom. Okay? The name of the Talmud Torah, the Kitab as we used to call it, was called Yesod Hadat, the foundation of religion, the foundation of Judaism. That was the name of my elementary school. The high school was named the same. But I think there was a name added to distinguish between primary elementary school and the high school. Okay? And in the school, I remember vividly that they used to invest in us, not only the academic aspect of studying in school, not only the traditions, but they actually built in us the Yesodot, the foundation. And the name is apropos. If I want to have a future generation of Jewish people, I need to invest in the children, which is a suitable statement today because we are rapidly approaching Shavuot. Shavuot is 3 weeks from now, more or less. Okay, we did 27th day of the Omer, so 3 weeks more or less. Shavuot begins on a Thursday night, Friday, Shabbat. So we have 3 weeks. Okay, what was the ultimate counter offer that Moshe gave to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? When God came to give the Torah to Moshe, to give to us, God requested from Moshe, Moshe, I need guarantors. Imagine you go to the bank today, and the bank says, okay, we check your credit, you seem to be a nice guy, but you are too young. I need a guarantor. I need a cosigner. I need a arev. I need a guarantor. That's the meaning of arev. What Moshe Rabbeinu did, started to negotiate with God. I give you Abraham, Isaac, and Yaakov. God says, wait. God says they are dead already. I need a living guarantee. Moshe and Aharon. But what's going to happen when you're going to leave? Nevi'im, the prophets, Yoshua included. Every counter offer Moshe made, God says, what if, what if, what if, what if? Every any excuse was given. Finally, Moshe Rabbeinu ran out of options. Finally, Moshe Rabbeinu says the three magic words. Banenu, Arevim, Ba'adenu. Our children are the guarantors of the Torah. What does it mean? Moshe Rabbeinu says, we're going to make sure that the Torah becomes Masoret. Masoret in Hebrew means tradition, which unfortunately today, it's a political statement when you try to determine what kind of level of observance the person has. One of them is called Masorti. Masorti has many levels of understanding, but in the literal tradition means very traditional. Yani celebrates the holidays, Friday night Kiddush, very limited. But if you look at the Mishnah in Pirkei Avot, which we have learned through the years, how does the Mishnah begins? Moshe kibel Torah mesinai umsara liYoshua. Umsara. What's the meaning of umsara? Imagine yourself, I want to download the file. What do? I select the file, I download it into another device through a wire, wirelessly, or through an SUV, etc. So Masoret means downloading the information from one generation to the other. Many times we say Masoret hi beyadenu is an ancient tradition given to us in our hands from the previous generations, that this is what we do in a case like this. That's why it's called Masoret. Masoret. There is another word in Hebrew which has, I'm going to explain now, that is a very negative, derogatory word. It's called Moser. Moser in English means an informant, a snitched. Somebody, God forbid, that informs about another Jew to the authorities. This is called Moser. Never be on that category, because if you're in that category, many consequences are activated. God forbid. That's why in the Sidur you see Laminim, Bela Malshinim, Bela Mosrim, Al Tehi Tikva. The word Mosrim was added. In the early generations, the word Mosrim was not part. But somehow they added it because, regretfully, there was a time in history that people were not careful with this matter. So Moser means an informant in a negative way, but Masoret basically means that I'm transferring over the information to you, and you do it to your son, and your son does it to his son. And that's why one great rabbi from Israel was asked a question in Miami in a lecture many years ago. It says, how do we know if we were good Jewish parents? You know what the great rabbi answered? If you have Jewish grandchildren. Not Jewish children, because you can have Jewish children. You did the farah, you did the milah, you did the bar mitzvah, etc. But how many times since the bar mitzvah, the child put on tefillin afterwards? Don't answer me. So you did more the traditional event, one day event, spend a couple of dollars, move on. Let's continue. It says in the Sefirah of today that there's certain covenant that God developed with the Jewish people. I'll explain. 3 mitzvot in our Torah that have the word ot involved. Tefillin, ve'ayeh lecha le'ot al yadecha, tefillin, number 1. Number 2, Shabbat. Beni uben bnei Israel, ot hi le'olam. And the Berit Milah, vaya Berit le'ot beni u benecha, ad olam. So these 3 mitzvot, says the Sefirah of today, they are fundamental aspects of Judaism. You cannot really be connected with God if you don't put on tefillin. You cannot be connected with God if you don't observe Shabbat properly. You cannot be connected with God if your Berit Milah needs holiness. You understand what I'm trying to say? So these are things which are fundamental in Judaism. If they are followed and they are observed, by the way, what I just said includes the ladies as well. Because kashrut, Shabbat, family purity, etc., the ladies don't need to put on tefillin. You know why? Because they are a walking tefillin. And that's ladies don't put on talet. Even though there is halachic reasons why ladies are exempt of this mitzvot, simply the mitzvah that has a specific time frame, God says, you're taking care of your house, you taking care of your husband, you preventing your husband of sinning outside of the home, it's more important to me than the mitzvot of the Torah. That's the reason why ladies are exempt. Yes, the Gemara gave a halachic angle, but if you want to know the real deal, why ladies are exempt, I'll tell you a story. That's exactly what the Gemara says. The Gemara says they prevent the husbands from sinning and educate the children. Because the child, by nature, the way God created mankind, is that the child is more connected to the mother than to the father, at least in the early stages of life. She carried him, she nurses him, she takes care of him. So there was a lady in Israel. This story happened in Israel many years ago. Short story, simple story, but the lesson, what the great rabbi said, is the moral of the story. This story happened with a lady, young lady, religious, in Israel. She writes a letter to one of the greatest hachamim of the previous generation, a great hacham by the name of Rabbi Eliashiv. Have you heard of him? Mega. When he passed away, the burial had 600,000 or 700,000 people. Zecher Sadik Livracha, a holy man. I visited him a few times in Yerushalayim. Holy man. I went to his room, I went to his home. Simplicity was the most luxurious aspect of life that he had. Anav. Simplicity. And that simplicity made him who he became. So a young lady sends the rabbi a question. And she says, Rabbi, I don't feel happy with myself. Why not? She says, when I was single, I used to pray 3 times a day. And I used to read 10, 20 chapters of Tehillim a day. And I always make sure to do at least 3 acts of kindness throughout the day, irrelevant of how busy I was. I got married, I had a child, and now I'm not able to do any of the above. I'm taking care of the child, I'm not able to pray, barely 1 prayer a day, Hesed is minimal, I'm busy, and I don't know what to do. Give me a tikkun. Give me a spiritual remedy. That was more or less the content of the letter. The rabbi, so beautiful, he says to her, you don't need a tikkun. Keep doing what you are doing. You're taking care of the home, you're taking care of the children, you're taking care of the holiness of the home. To God's eyes, you're changing a diaper is an act of kindness. By you preparing the kids to the Talmud Torah, it's like you pray Ne'ilah in Yom Kippur. By you observing family purity, it's like the Kohen Gadol enter in Yom Kippur. So what, unbelievable. So what the great rabbi very intelligently said, so what the great rabbi said, it's beautiful that you did all of the above when you were single. Now you are married, your priority in life becomes your husband and your family. And that's exactly the reason why God says, you know what? I'm going to give your husband to do mitzvot. You do what you need to do. handle for me the kashrut of the home, handle for me the family purity of the home, handle for me the education of the home. I'm super happy with you. And that's the reason why in the actual day of Shavuot, when we are going to read the parasha of the Ten Commandments, look at one of the pesukim that says, Ko tomar lebet Yaakov betaged livnei Israel. In the giving of the Torah, the ladies were given priority over to the men. The Torah was given first to the ladies and then to the men. And ask yourself why. Ask me why. Excellent question, because God says, the last time I said something to the men and the lady did not listen to me directly, we have the sin of Adam and Hava. So God says, I'm not doing the same mistake twice. I'm going to tell the ladies what they need to do, what the responsibility in life is, and what's the position in the holiness of Judaism is all about. And then the men will do what they need to do. It's a fascinating concept. It's a pasuk in the Torah. I'm not making it up. Ko tomar lebet Yaakov. I ask you a question. How the girls' schools in the world are called? Bet Yaakov. What they are called Bet Yaakov? Call them Bet Leah. Bet Rachel. By the way, there are some schools called Bet Rachel. But usually, in many cities in America and throughout the world, when you say the word Bet Yaakov, refers to a school for girls, or Bet Yaakov could be Bet Yaakov Safra. It's a different name. It's a different school. But I'm saying the standard, when a school has the name Bet Yaakov, is basically the major leagues of Torah observance in the school. You're never going to find a Bet Yaakov school that is mixed. You're not going to find a Bet Yaakov school that the girls go without modesty. Usually Bet Yaakov is a name to a school that provides a good foundation in Torah ideals, obviously together with a good academic aspect of education, because at the end of the day, you need both. But you cannot concentrate in one more than the other. You need both, because we need to live as a physical life, but we need to give the foundation of godliness in the formative years of the person's life. Now, Ben Adam LaHavero. The next message of the Sefirah of today refers to an interesting Mishnah in the name of Shammai. Shammai, Pirkei Avot, right here is in front of me. First chapter of Pirkei Avot. I'd like to read you the full version of the Mishnah because I think it carries a lot of powerful messages. Right here. Shammai Omer. Shammai say, we have a rule in Pirkei Avot. Whenever the Mishnah brings this sentence, for example, Shammai Omer, Rabban Gamliel Omer, Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel Omer, Rabbi Omer, Hillel Omer, the word Omer means used to say, but you can only qualify to have this word attached to your name only if you lived what you preached. It wasn't just saying it. He says you need to lead by example. So the Mishnah says, okay, let's see what was the example of Shammai. Chapter 1. Aseh Toratecha Keba. Literally means establish the Torah with foundation. That's why the Gemara in Masechet Shabbat asks, Kaba'ta itim la Torah? What's the meaning of Kaba'ta itim la Torah? Did you fix times for Torah learning like we are doing now? Or like the Kolel does now or in the afternoon? People understand. There is a Gemara class, there is a Minhad, there is a Arvit. Like we have a time for praying, there is a time for learning. So Shammai says, Shammai didn't say, learn all day. It says, make sure that not day goes by, but with an appointment. Like you have a doctor's appointment and you want to be seen at the proper time, and usually you have to wait, right? How frustrated do you become if you gotta wait and wait and wait and wait? You're not happy. Yes, I came half an hour before the appointment. They tell you, be 15 minutes. You come 15 minutes, then you gotta wait half an hour. And then you gotta wait in the office another 20 minutes. That's what happens usually. Okay? This is the reality of life. But how good will you feel that you make an appointment and you're being seen at the right time of the appointment? Unbelievable. Or you're waiting for a customer to come and the customer comes on time. Beautiful. So Shammai says two things. Number one, the learning of Torah is not negotiable. Every Yehudi must learn Torah daily. That's how we take vitamins. People take vitamins. I take vitamins. You take vitamins. Everybody takes vitamins. Chazaku Baruch. Supplements, they work, they don't work. I don't know. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But we take it. Okay? So it says Shammai, number one, literally, the Rambam explains that a day cannot go by without the person having an infusion of Torah in the neshama. You need to have an infusion. That's what keeps us going individually and collectively. That's number one. And there are many more explanations on this Mishnah. I'm giving you some of those that are available in front of me. Number two, Emor me'at va'aseh harbe. Say little and do a lot. What does it mean? Don't say too much. Because if you say too much, most likely it's haki balash. Most likely cannot happen or will not happen. Okay, the Pasuk here, the Mishnah brings an example of Avraham Avinu. Avraham Avinu says to the three angels that visited him, okay, let me bring you some bread and water to eat and water to wash your feet. But then if you look at the Sa'udah, what did he bring to them? Pickled tongue and all kinds of delicacies. He says, why? Why? Says the Torah is teaching us, a good person says, I'm going to do a little. And then you're able to deliver that little and do more. Hazaku Baruch. And the third one it says, like Ephron. Remember Ephron says to Abraham, when Abraham Avinu wants to bury Sara, what does he say, Ephron, to Abraham? Nasi Elokim atabeki betochenu. You are a prince of God. Pick the best land that you want for your burial. Okay, when a guy is talking to you like this, I'm so happy that you came. Anything you want, faddal, pick what you want. You think that it's going to be on the house. And then Ephron says, okay, that's what you like. 400 international currency. Not 400 shekels, 400 pesos. 400 silver talents, I believe, that were international currency. Exchangeable anywhere in the world. An exorbitant amount what Abraham Avinu paid. But hold on a minute. What happened before? You told me you're the Prince of the Almighty. Anything you need, please, I'm here for you. And now you're sending me a bill? I thought that it was on the house. And yet Abraham Avinu paid. No questions. Of course he knew. Now, so look at the extremes. Abraham Avinu says, okay, come to the synagogue and you have some bagel and cream cheese. And suddenly from bagel and cream cheese, what do you have? Ma'amul, ba'lawa, shakshuka, sambusak, all types of cheeses, sliced vegetables, delicious fruit. That's the meaning of emor me'at va'aseh harbe. I say little, but I deliver much more. And the third sentence of the Mishnah says, Beve mekabel et kol ha'adam besever panim yafot. Welcome people with a smile in your face. And here he's talking about two different levels of inviting people. The Rabino Obadiah of Bartenura says, when you invite a guest to your home, don't show him or give him a long face. Don't relieve all your burdens and all your bahtes and all your problems to the face or to the ear of the guest. This is what the Pelei Yoes also writes. You think you invited a guest, yeah, come over for Shabbat meal. Why not? Why not? And then what happens? It becomes a therapy session. The host starts opening up his mouth and talks and talks and talks and talks and all the dramas of life. So you know what the guest says? I would have been better in my hotel. Take some pita and za'atar and a little bit of salad and tahin and hummus and haje. Now I came to your house and then suddenly the food became poison. Became a balagan. And that's what the Mishnah says. It says you invited someone. If you tell the person in advance, listen, let's go out to eat something. I want to discuss with you a couple of things. I have a couple of situations. I need assistance. I need guidance. Hazaku Baruch. The opposite. Shlomo Melech says, Chochmah berov yoetz. If you have something that affects you, if you have a situation in your life, talk it out. Maybe somebody can listen, and hopefully that person is not on the same boat as you and can help you, can guide you, maybe. But if you invite the person for a Shabbat or holiday meal, and usually we hope and pray that Shabbat and holiday meals carry a certain level of happiness, decorum, holiness, and joy, kedusha, obviously I don't want it to become now not only ordinary, but a bitter. You know, the food was delicious, but the food now it's poison by this conversation. And that's what Shammai said, greet people with a smile. And I read this interesting 2 days ago concerning the face of the person becoming a mirror to the other person. I did say this in the class, but I also saw it in writing afterwards, saying that in the concept of marriage, in the concept of human relationships, you know, our face says a lot. So the second message is, Ben Adam la Havero, greet people with a smile. Don't say too much. Somebody's asking you for something, okay, let me see what I can do. Let me try. Because if you say a lot and then you don't deliver, the disappointment to the person, to your wife, to your kids, to your friend, to your rabbi, whoever it may be, it becomes worse. And that sometimes it takes much more effort to remedy. Now, Ben Adam le'atzmo. Here he brings an interesting example, which I'm not comfortable even to say it. But I'm going to say it. Okay? And he brings the following question. How do we want to be remembered after 120 years in this world? Okay, Chazaku Baruch, I'm happy that you know the answer. But you don't acquire a Shem Tov just for transitioning between the physical life to the Olam HaEmet. The Shem Tov needs to be earned. And that earning can only develop throughout life. Takes a lifetime to build a good name and takes 1 minute to destroy it. And unfortunately, we have seen throughout history people that regretfully, in one moment, in one instant, in one unfortunate situation, the life became a fish. They became completely destroyed for whatever situation it may have been. So he's asking, not answer, what kind of Shem Tov a person will have, Haim Tovim, when they meet the Creator. And God forbid, I hope nobody's going anywhere. All right? Be'ezrat Hashem, Mashiach will be here soon. And we are able to write history that in our generation, Mashiach came. But lo alenu velo alechem, God forbid, this concept of passing, regretfully, is alive and well. It happens. How painful it is, and we don't want to even talk about it. But the question is, okay, what's going to be the person's obituary? What's going to be the person's eulogy? Don't answer that. You can write your own text based on our life. Did the person have a great name? Was the person liked by people? Was a person with pleasant personality? And that's the reason why we always speak about tzaddikim. Why we always speak about the real tzaddikim, the good tzaddikim of our nation throughout history, because they made a dent in the world. They made a change in the world. And I'm not minimizing the good people of the world as well, but their influence probably was limited to themselves and to their families. But there were certain tzaddikim that post-mortem, they're still influencing our lives. Whichever name you name me, there is lessons. Shammai, how many years ago you think Shammai lived? 2,000 years ago. And he's telling me, remember, greet people with a smile. What, are you a Walmart greeter? Don't worry, be happy. These are great deeds that they did. These are great deeds, and nobody, God forbid, minimizes the great deed. But that great deed is more than a charitable concept. And we don't minimize that. That's also a component of Shem Tov as well. But that's not the only area of Shem Tov that we concentrate upon. Okay? You could have been a very generous person. Very nice, beautiful. But what else did you do? What else did you do? Is your family following in the legacy of our Torah? Don't answer me the question. Only the person can answer that. You know, did you help people? Or you just gave a donation because you want to see your name on the wall? I told you the story a few years ago. This a guy said, I want a plaque. He asked me, what size plaque you going to give me? So I answered him in my rabbinical way, what size check you going to give me? He said, what do you mean? You want a cashier's check? No, it can be a personal check. Just tell me the number. Funny story. Funny story. No, it's coming. It's coming. It's coming soon. Be'ezat Hashem. Okay, I know it's a joke. I said to the person, Chaim Tovim, says, if it's me, I will not worry about the size of the plaque. Because the smaller the plaque here, the bigger the plaque in Shamayim. And we have people that are, Baruch Hashem, very generous, without giving names, that they tell me, Rabbi, I want to do it, no name, anonymously. And guess what? The more good deeds a person does anonymously, the greater the reward is to the person. I'm not saying not to do things in a personal matter, because there is a concept called mefarsemim ose mitzvah. You should publicize and express your gratitude to do when you do certain things. And that's why sometimes you see names and sometimes you don't see names. Like we have a sponsorship of today's class. Who sponsored it? Do you know? No, that's one of the three that we have today. But with the one of the names that I mentioned is sponsored anonymously. Doesn't matter. Chazaku Baruch. And I repeat, don't do things all the time anonymously. Sometimes you say the name because that gives an incentive to people. And not only that, many parents, and I know this for a fact because they told me, I'm teaching my child to give. I'm teaching my children to be givers. And the community that you're part of it is built in part on this predicament. That the children follow the footsteps of their parents at all levels. So when a child, a son, or a grandson sees the grandfather's name, it tells them, look at the good deeds of my grandfather. And this happens here often. Even yesterday, one of the students came and he asked him, what's your name? And he told me his name. And he says, I remember your grandfather. He says, how do you know him? I told him the story of his life. How do you know all this? He says, because he was a very beloved member of our congregation. He almost started to cry. He said, he's here with you now. I show him the name in the founder's plaque. This is one aspect. So obviously, The message of today, as we say, is super apropos for everyday life. Let me just bring one final message, and if there is a need to, otherwise we'll finish the class today. Interesting. I think that is suitable for me to say this, and this will finish. Let me find you quickly the Mishnah in Pirkei Avot. Right here. The message of the Pirkei Avot today, to the 27th day of the Omer, is Eni eno mahazik tova lenafsho. What does it mean, this concept? Eno mahazit, the person doesn't claim goodness for his soul. What does this mean? You don't promote, you don't guarantee goodness for yourself. The Torah, besides giving us lessons for life, the Torah also gives us warnings for life. We read it in the Perashah. Asu mishmeret lemishmarti. Ushmartem. Whenever the Torah says ushmartem, the Torah is telling us, watch out, be careful with this and this and this and this. So imagine yourself that a person is facing a nisayon, a challenge, whatever level it may be. And Hachamim built a fence, and then the person says, no, I can handle it. Guess what? That statement, that I can handle it, which means going against the fences of protection that the Torah and the Hachamim gave us, is dangerous. I'll bring you one example. I will finish the class with this. The one and only Shlomo HaMelech. What happened with Shlomo HaMelech? He thought that whatever warning the Torah was giving, it wasn't relevant to him. He says, the Torah is talking to an average person. I was gifted with godly wisdom. My father was King David. I'm building the Beit HaMikdash. I can understand the language of the birds, the language of the animals. I'm the macher of the world. I'm going to bring Mashiach in my time, according to some opinions. That's what he wanted to do. But in order to achieve that, what did he do? He broke boundaries. He married people, ladies that were questionable. He married more than he was allowed to marry. He amassed wealth and fortune, and the Torah says openly, Lo yarbe lo nashim, bekesef v'zahav lo yarbe lo meod. Lo yarbe sus, horses, not to go back to Egypt. What Shlomo HaMelech said, the Torah is talking to all of you. I'm exempt. That's what the Mishnah says. Don't feel secure by yourself that you can have the audacity of going against the Torah and the Hachamim, believing that you have an insurance policy, that God protects us in the moment of danger or spiritual challenges. That's for sure. That's what we say in our Birkot HaShachar. Al tevieni lidei nisayon. But for me to put myself in the lion's den of a dangerous spiritual situation, believing to say, I can handle it. I have my vitamin. I know how to deal with the Yetzer Hara. You think that you know how to deal with the Yetzer Hara? Greater people fail. And that's the message of the Mishnah of today. Keep your guard up. That's it. Now we have challenges. We all have them. No one is immune. And not only that, according to our Torah, the challenges of today are different than yesterday's. Why? Because today I'm different than yesterday. Today I know more what I knew 24 hours ago. And I'm sorry I went into much overtime, and I apologize in advance. Wow. The time flew. Thank you. And I apologize for just talking and not looking at the clock. Thank you. We love you too. Okay? That's the message of today. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you for all the generous sponsors of today's class. Le'ilui nishmat, the beloved relatives. Now we're going to say Kaddish and Ashkava immediately, right after Kaddish al Israel. Baruch Adonai le'olam. Amen ve'amen.